In 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire fell, marking the beginning of the Middle Ages in Europe, which lasted for 1,000 years. During this turbulent period, Germanic barbarians constantly invaded, and the original regime and social order collapsed. In order to cope with this situation, a new social system gradually formed, which was the feudal system. The feudal system was a strictly hierarchical social structure. In this pyramid-shaped society, the king was at the top, nominally possessing all the land and subjects. But in reality, the king's power was very limited. He granted large tracts of land to lords of various sizes. The lords then granted part of the land to knights. And at the bottom of society were the vast serfs. This formed a typical feudal hierarchy: king, lord, knight, serf. Each level had obligations and services to the level above, while also receiving loyalty and tribute from the level below. This relationship was like a chain, interlocking layer by layer and mutually constraining each other. Economically, feudal society practiced a manorial economy. Each manor was a relatively independent economic unit, with most of the necessities of life produced within the manor, achieving self-sufficiency. Serfs toiled in the manor for generations, not only having to pay high tributes, but also bearing various hard labor. Politically, the core of the feudal system was exchanging land for loyalty. The king and lords granted land to knights in order to obtain their military service and loyalty. Land became a political tool with a high degree of privatization. This led to a serious situation of fragmentation, with lords ruling on their own and central power weakening. As Martin Luther said, "A knight is a small king." In feudal society, a knight was not only a military title, but also a symbol of political and social status. They had their own fiefdoms and serfs, and had supreme power within their own territories. In the hierarchical structure of feudal society, the knight class occupied an important position. They were the elite warriors of medieval Europe, enjoying many privileges and honors. Let's explore the formation and characteristics of the knight class in depth. The origin of the knight class can be traced back to the warrior tradition of the Germanic people. In Germanic tribes, bravery in battle was the highest virtue for men. Tribal leaders would usually gather a group of brave warriors, called guests. These guests followed the leader into battle, exchanging military force for honor and wealth. This warrior tradition became the prototype of the later knight system. With the development of the feudal system, knights gradually became a formal social class. They had their own unique titles and ranks, such as knight, baron, viscount, etc. These titles not only represented military honor, but also symbolized social status and power. Economically, the knight class had their own fiefdoms. These lands were usually bestowed by the king or lord as a reward for the knight's military service. Knights obtained various incomes from their fiefdoms, especially taxes from serfs. This made the knights landed nobles with considerable economic power. The political power of knights was mainly reflected in their loyalty to their feudal lords. As the direct vassals of the feudal lords, knights had the obligation to provide military service and follow them into battle. But at the same time, knights held military power and also posed a potential threat to the feudal lords. Some powerful knights could even rival their feudal lords, forming a situation of fragmentation. In daily life, knights led a luxurious and enjoyable lifestyle. They lived in heavily fortified castles, which were not only military fortresses, but also symbols of power and wealth. Knights were fond of aristocratic activities such as hunting, jousting, and feasting. These activities were not only for entertainment but also important occasions to display military prowess and form alliances. The knight class was not just a social rank, but also a unique cultural phenomenon. Knight culture shaped the aesthetic tastes and moral concepts of medieval Europe, and its influence far exceeded the knight class itself. Let us explore the many aspects of knight culture together. To become a knight, one needed to undergo long-term training and education. Typically, a 7-year-old noble boy would begin learning knight etiquette, such as horseback riding, hunting, singing, and dancing. At the age of 14, they became squires, following older knights to learn combat skills and knight morality. At the age of 21, They formally became knights through a series of ceremonies. The core tenets of knighthood were bravery, loyalty, benevolence, and humility. Bravery was the primary virtue of a knight. They had to face any challenge and danger fearlessly. Loyalty was absolute obedience to the monarch and moral principles. Benevolence required knights to protect the weak and help those in need. Humility reminded knights to always remain humble and self-reflective. In knight culture, women occupied a special position. Knights advocated a kind of courtly elegance, viewing women as the embodiment of beauty and purity. They were willing to complete various highly difficult tasks for the favor of their beloved. This courtly love was usually platonic, reflecting more of a spiritual pursuit. Knights created a large number of literary works to express their emotions and ideals. Knight lyric poetry was a typical literary form, in which knights sang praises of themes such as love, friendship, and honor. Heroic odes recorded the heroic deeds of knights, shaping a series of legendary heroic figures. In terms of sports activities, knights loved equestrian competitions and jousting. These activities not only tested the knight's martial arts, but were also important occasions to display demeanor and form alliances. Knights showed courage, skill, and style in competitions, winning honor and praise. Many famous knight figures emerged in knight culture. King Arthur was the legendary king of Britain, and the stories of him and the Knights of the Round Table became representative of knight ideals. Lancelot was King Arthur's chief knight, and his tragic love story with Queen Guinevere reflected the complexity of the knight spirit. Roland was Charlemagne's nephew, and his heroic sacrifice became a symbol of knight loyalty and bravery. The feudal system and knight culture prevailed in medieval Europe for hundreds of years, profoundly influencing European history. This influence had both negative and positive aspects. Let us comprehensively evaluate the historical role of the feudal system and knight culture. From a negative perspective, feudal fragmentation led to long-term chaos and turmoil in medieval Europe. Under the feudal system, lords ruled on their own, fighting for land and power. This led to endless wars and conflicts, bringing deep disasters to the common people. War destroyed agricultural production and hindered commercial development, leaving people in dire straits. The feudal hierarchy also had its negative impact. In this strictly hierarchical society, serfs were attached to the land for generations without personal freedom. They not only had to bear heavy labor and taxes, but also endure the exploitation and oppression of feudal lords. This personal dependence severely limited individual freedom and development, hindering social progress. However, knight culture also had its positive aspects. Knights upheld virtues such as bravery, loyalty, and benevolence, setting moral models for people. They sang praises of love and heroism, expressing noble emotions in human nature. Knight literature, music, painting, and other art forms enriched European culture and inspired people's pursuit of beauty and truth. These factors laid the cultural foundation for the later Renaissance. Moreover, certain values in the knight spirit, such as courage, loyalty, and integrity, still inspire modern people today. In a world full of uncertainty and challenges, we still need these noble qualities to face difficulties and adhere to principles. In this sense, the knight spirit has value that transcends time. Knight culture is also widely reflected in contemporary popular culture. Many literary and film works draw inspiration from knight stories, creating captivating narrative worlds. Characters like Aragorn in The Lord of the Rings and the knights in A Song of Ice and Fire inherit certain characteristics of traditional knight figures. These works allow knight culture to continue in a new way, inspiring the imagination of a new generation. As modern people, we need to recognize the drawbacks of the feudal system, while also drawing on the positive and uplifting elements of knight culture. In this way, we can more comprehensively understand history and gain wisdom and enlightenment from it.